Hello guys, today I wanted to make a video rather than doing a deck profile, and the video is going to be mainly about a beginner's guide to Dogmatika and give you guys some ideas what to do, and also show some tests, like some of my current things, how Dogmatika is going. But yeah, let's first of all look over how Dogmatica has been performing for me. It has been fine, mainly. Uh, in rated specifically, a lot of people don't read your cards correctly, so it's been doing fine. I have been switching around with approaches. Currently, my approach is Bystials with going first and going a little bit more aggressive on the engine. But I've also tried going second, and going second was kind of good until some shifts in the format happened, and then I had some massive loss streaks. Uh, but in general, the deck is fine. It's not tier 1, but it's fine. But anyways, like the main problem of the deck is the base engine does not have a good matchup against Labyrinth. And versus Kashtira, Rise Heart hurts the deck. So first of all, let's go through the engine. Ecclesia gets you a search, and you can special summon her. Also, the extra deck lock is negated if Ecclesia's search effect is negated. Fleur de Lis, she helps you get your cards going, as in like pushing them the resolution of the cards through by taking care of a negate. White Relic. This is one of the cards that people usually do not know, so I'll go over it. If you special summon her, she'll target 2 face-up monsters on the field and boost the attack of one of those monsters by the attack of the other forever. That is very solid, and that effect is not once per turn. You can ritual summon her multiple times if you want to. Then also, level 8 or higher Dogmatika monsters cannot be destroyed by battle, which usually is relevant if your opponent wants to, first of all, beat down White Knight before they beat Relic, because Relic is sometimes very large. And the last effect is if a monster is special summoned from the opponent's extra deck, you can look at it and you can send one monster from their extra deck to the graveyard. This one is once per turn. It is pretty much relevant to use this effect in situations where your opponent wants to go for Zeus, or if you know the extra deck of your opponent and know that you can hit a specific card out. Otherwise, I would not risk it 100% due to tactics, even though triple tactics is not very popular right now. White Knight of Dogmatika. He is the bread and butter of the ritual stuff. The only reason I really play the ritual stuff. He works like Fenrir. If your opponent activates a card or effect, except during the damage step, you can send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. And if you do, so if your opponent like chains a runic spell, and has only one card in extra deck, you still get to send your from your extra deck. And then you get to look at their extra deck and send one monster from it to the graveyard. And also, while he is on the field, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. And also, when he sends cards, he gets attack equal to half of the combined attack. So he gets attack equal to the average of the monsters, 2 monsters sent. Nadir's Servant is the dumbest card in the deck because it gets to Ecclesia. Send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, then add one Dogmatika monster or one Fallen of Albaz from your deck or graveyard to your hand that has attack less or equal to the attack of the sent monster. Also, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. Again, if Nadir's Servant gets ashed or negated in any way, you still get to special summon from your extra deck. This is relevant if you play it with engines, and I'll go over a lot of engines that you could technically run in the decks. I have, of course, not tested all of them because there are just too many. And Nadir's Servant is an activate once per turn effect, so if your opponent negates the activation, you can activate it again. Another one that has an activate once per turn is the new card, Dogmatika Matrix. When this card is activated, you can add one Dogmatika ritual monster or a ritual spell from your deck to your hand. Then, if your opponent controls a monster, you can add one Dogmatika card from your deck to your hand. First of all, you don't have to add off of the activation of this card because this is a permanent spell. This is a continuous. And the add with the Dogmatika card, it can be literally any of the Dogmatika cards, including Dogmatika Matrix. It can add itself. Then once per turn, and this once per turn is once per copy. If you control a Dogmatika Ritual monster, you can look at either player's extra deck. You have to declare which extra deck and send one monster from it to the graveyard. Declaring the extra deck is not cost, but you have to do it before you look at either extra deck. And you can only activate this card once per turn, as in, like, putting it on the field. Then Dogmatika Calamity. This is the Necros Kaleidoscope of the deck. You can tribute monsters from hand or field whose level equals exactly the one of the ritual monster. Or you can send one from your extra deck to the graveyard that equals. And for the rest of this turn after that card resolves, you cannot special summon from the extra deck. That means if this card is negated, you still cannot summon from the extra deck because it's a separate effect. In Dogmatika Macabre, this card summons Dogmatika monsters from hand, field, or graveyard. From hand or graveyard. Of course, you cannot summon from field. And you tribute from hand or field or banish fusion / synchro monsters from your graveyard whose total level equals or exceeds the level of the ritual monster you want to summon. And then, if both White Knight of Dogmatika and White Relic of Dogmatika are on the field, you can look at either extra deck, and you can send one card from it to the graveyard, and it's also an activate once per turn. This card does not lock you. So if you want to get a ritual summon out, you could technically summon White Relic with Macabre before you do extra deck summons, because that doesn't lock you out of the extra deck. And also, this card can be belled. This card also kind of doesn't like to be Lanciad, but it's fine usually. And the checking with White Knight and White Relic happens after the summon. So, like, if you summon a White Relic while you control already a White Knight, you get to look at the extra deck thing. In sequencing, this card is pretty relevant because the send you usually first activate Calamity and then Macabre, and you get Macabre off of one of the Herald sends you get off of Matrix, and that usually ensures the second ritual summon, which then means you can use the Herald as like a bridge to get the other ritual summon and to get another monster on the field. And then there is, of course, Dogmatika Punishment, a card you guys should currently know. Target one face-up monster on your opponent controls for cost. Send one monster with an attack equal or higher from your extra deck to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy that monster. Also, this card locks you out of special summoning until your next turn ends. That means if you activate it on your opponent's turn, on your following turn, You cannot special summon from the extra deck. Also, it's an activate once per turn. And what is very relevant, if you target monsters that would not be destroyed by punishment, you can still send cards. That means you can technically target unaffected monsters like Traptrix Sarah or Arrival Cybers or stuff like that, and send something just to get the send. Because the destruction is not mandatory on this card. So these are like the most relevant Dogmatika cards. There are some others, of course, and I put them all here in the sideboard, all of them that you could consider playing. First of all, there's Maximus, of course. Maximus is a solid extender in the sense that if you already get to play, you get 2 sends from your extra deck with different names, and your opponent has to send 2. So it will reduce their flex spots while you get your 2 graveyard effects from the stuff you're sending. But this card is also risky in a format where people play graveyard effects that are in the extra deck. And summoning him is by banishing one fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link monster from your graveyard. You can also normal summon him. And the send effect also locks you out of the extra deck. And it's the same like Ecclesia, so if he gets negated, you can still summon from extra deck. Yeah, he's like probably the most likely card you can decide to play. Then there is Dogmatika Ashion. If a fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link monster is sent to the graveyard from through any means, like either by a send from extra deck to graveyard, or if it's like run over by a card effect, you get to special summon him. And then, if it's special summoned, you can target one Dogmatika card in your graveyard and add it to your hand. And his other effect is when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can make all Dogmatika monsters you control gain 500 attack. And each effect is once per turn. He's one of the 8s, and he's technically thought in engine as a recursion tool for certain cards. I have not tested this card, and I would say you should probably not consider playing this. But you can test around and see if you like it. But if you play it, I would assume you play it as a one-of. The same goes for Dogmatika Albazoa. This card is, first of all, a blanket protection for your monsters from extra deck effects. That means like if your opponent sends something off of your Maximus or something and it activates an effect that would harm your board like an Intus, and you have Albazoa on board, your Dogmatika monsters are unaffected by that Intus. The same goes for field effects, but this only goes for activated effects. That means cards like Baguska, which are continuous effects, as well as cards like Mirror Jade's Graveyard effect, which is a lingering effect rather than an activating effect, Dogmatika Albazoa will not protect from. The second thing is it has an ignition effect during your main phase. You can make your opponent choose and apply one of these effects. And what it means is that your opponent also has to resolve it like this. So first of all, for every 2 cards in your extra deck, send 1 card from your extra deck to the hand to the graveyard. First of all, this is a send rather than a discard, so no dark rolls will trigger off of this. And that means, and also of course, your opponent is sending the cards, not you. And your opponent can only activate this effect if he has 2 or more cards in their extra deck. The other effect, return all fusion, synchro, Xyz, and link monsters you control to the extra deck. he can only choose this effect if he controls either of these monsters. So if he has an empty board, he cannot just say, "Yeah, I'm gonna activate the second effect and literally do nothing." That doesn't work. So that is relevant. Like, you have to be able to do the effect to activate for your opponent to be able to choose the effect, either of the effects. And it's also once per turn, the Zoa effect. In general, the main thing that he does well is being huge. He has 4,000 base attack and defense, and being just an annoying towers. He is going to get more playable in the next set due to a card called Despian Lulu Violinith, which is also a pretty relevant monster. This is an honorary Dogmatika card, in my opinion. Once per turn, you can summon it with a level 4 tuner and 1+ non-tuner monsters. So any level 4 tuner plus Fleur or 2 Ecclesias can make Lulu Violinith. But there's an easier way to get to Lulu Violinith. And we'll get to it. The main effect that you care about is the second effect, but the first effect is once per turn if a card leaves either player's extra deck. That means if one is summoned or sent to the graveyard. Except during the damage step, you can make all face-up monster you control currently gain 500 attack, and also you can then negate one face-up card on the field until the end of the turn. That means this card can also negate cards like Runic Fountain, which is cool, but it will never come up because you're never summoning it against a normal Runic deck. And then the second effect, during the end phase, if this card is sent to the graveyard this turn, and it is there, you can special summon one light spellcaster monster whose attack equals its own def from your hand or deck. That means you can special summon in engine, Ecclesia, or Fleur, and out of engine way more cards. Which mean, and because this thing is a level 12, you can make Dogmatika Calamity summon Albazoa and Senthos, which then gets your engine rolling. Also, we're missing a card that I wanted to showcase. So these are like the most relevant Dogmatika cards. The other ones are more like memes in the sense like you should not play them. Like I can quickly go over it. Dogmatika Theo cannot be destroyed by extra deck monsters. You can special summon him if your opponent controls an extra deck monster, or you. And then you can target one face-up monster on the field that was special summoned from the extra deck. Theo gains 600 and the monster loses 600. This is awful. Dogmatika Adin the Enlightened. This was played in the very, very early drafts of Dogmatika because it also has the special summon and the protection effect. If this card is on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon one Dogmatika monster from your deck, except himself. Dogmatika Nexus. This is technically a possible tech card. You can special summon him by targeting 4 Fusion Synchro XCs or Link monsters in the graveyards. So that also means you can target opponent's graveyard stuff. You banish them. You special summon him, and then you banish the cards. So if your opponent chains Lancea to the Nexus, you can still special summon Nexus, but it doesn't banish. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles a special summoned monster, destroy all attack position monsters, all your opponent's attack position monsters, and then deal damage for each Fusion Synchro XCs and Link destroyed by the effect. The main idea of this is that this card removes cards out of the graveyards. Branded in Central Dogmatika. This card is the second effect of Dogmatika Matrix, basically. The fusion summon effect is irrelevant. The only reason why you could consider playing this is because it has branded in its name, which then makes it able to be used, set, or added by Albion. But otherwise, this card is trash. Dogmatika Encounter. This can do two effects. One of them is special summon a Dogmatika monster from your hand, or add to your hand or special summon one Dogmatika monster from your graveyard. And also, of course, you can special summon or add Fallen of Albaz. And you can also add from your graveyard with the other effect. You can only activate one encounter per turn. This card mainly has a nice artwork. Apart from that, you technically could run it if you want to go super duper ham on your Dogmatika stuff. This thing can technically resummon your Dogmatika monsters, your Dogmatika ritual monsters, if they have been ritual summoned properly. So basically, this fills the role of an Xyz Reborn in the deck. But otherwise, I would recommend you do not play it. Dogmatika Genesis. Target one banished fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link monster, and one effect monster your opponent controls of the same type, fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link. Return that banished monster to the extra deck, and if you do, negate the effects that monster your opponent controls. Activate once per turn. This is worse in perm. Dogmatika Turgy. Ritual summon one Dogmatika ritual monster from your hand or deck by tributing Dogmatika monsters and or ritual, fusion, or synchro monsters from your field whose total level equals exactly equal the level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. So yeah, this card can summon from deck. That is cool, but you're not resolving this because the tribute thing is just painful. Because you cannot tribute other monsters, you must tribute Dogma monsters, and you must tribute from the field, which is basically awful. Then the second thing, the only good part about this card, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card, then target two Dogmatika monsters with different levels in your graveyard, add one of them to your hand, and place the other on the bottom of your deck. And you can only activate one of the effects of this card per turn, and only once that turn. This card is, again, bricked by being very specific. Okay, so this is all of the Dogmatika cards you're playing. I'm almost saying Necros because this deck is basically better Necros. But there are some extra cards you have to know. First of all, Titaniclad. If it's sent to the graveyard, during the end phase, you get to special summon or add one Dogmatika monster. Elder Entity Intus. You have to play 3 of this, no matter what. If this card is sent to the graveyard not once per turn, you can destroy 1 card on the field by targeting it. Garura. Once per turn, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can draw 1 card. This card is good. Herald of the Arclight. Not once per turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 ritual monster or ritual spell from your deck to your hand. This is also, as said, not once per turn. It can search your ritual cards. Psyframe Lord Omega, also not once per turn. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 other card in the graveyard. Also your opponent's cards, by the way. Shuffle both that card and this card from the graveyard into the deck. It has to shuffle both, so if your opponent activates that card and gets it out of his graveyard, you still have Omega in graveyard and can reuse Omega. So you can basically bait any graveyard effect ever with this. Trebigate Arms Bucephalos. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can send 1 Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. This has 3 targets you're sending. Garura, Farigite, and Rentbrum. That's all you can send. And Farigite or Rentbrum are no longer really good. And then for the only good Xyz to send off of the stuff in the stack, Mirror Logic Aggregator. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one face-up card on the field, negate its effects until the end of this turn. This card can again target spells and traps, so this card can negate floodgates if your opponent has destruction protection on those floodgates, like runik usually does. And as said, it's the only Xyz that is good to send. These are like all of the mandatory ones, and then there is Grand Guignol, which is optional, but also again related to Dogmatika cards. You can banish this card from your field or graveyard, special summon one Dogmatika monster from your deck, or one Despia monster from your extra deck. This includes the new Synchro Despia monster, Lulu Valuth. And to activate this effect, your opponent must special summon a monster off of an opponent's monster's activated effect, which is every Sword Soul monster ever. This card is a one of if you want to play it. It's not super duper mandatory, but it's a nice to have. So now to the more exotic stuff. Albion, this can set a branded spell or trap from your deck. There are a couple of builds that like to abuse that. Deep Sea Prima Donna. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one banished card, shuffle it into the deck. This recycles stuff that was banished off of a Rise Height or a runic spells, so that your one-ofs are no longer banished and you don't lose the game because of banished one-ofs. Technically playable, always can consider, but the extra deck is tight. Wind Pegasus. During your main phase, you do nothing because you never summoned this. If this card is on the field or in the graveyard while another card you control is destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, you can banish this card, target one opponent's cards, shuffle it into the deck. Technically good, but since this is not proactive but retroactive, it makes it kind of irrelevant. You can still play it. El Shaddol Apkalon, and to an extent every Shaddol card in the game that is in the extra deck. The other Shaddol cards add Shaddol cards spells from your graveyard. But El Shaddol Apkalon, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one Shaddol card from your deck to your hand, or graveyard to your hand, then you discard one card. There are some decks that want to play Schism. Fossil Warrior Skull Knight and Fossil Machine Skull Wagon both do a similar thing. If these cards are in your graveyard, Skull Knight can banish itself to target one monster on the field and destroy it, and Skull Wagon can destroy one spell or trap by targeting it. These are only if you want to send this, but you don't have anything to pop just yet. Those are very optional. Borreload Furious Dragon. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Dark Link monster in your graveyard. Special summon it, but you cannot activate its effects this turn. Technically, you could play it. You can special summon an IP. Congratulations. But usually not played. Farigate. If this card is sent to your graveyard, draw one card, then place one card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. This card is power corrupt by Garura, but if you really want to play it, you can. And then Borrowcode Dragon. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Then, that is cost, banish one dark monster with 3,000 or more attack from the field, and if you do, special summon one topologic monster from your extra deck or graveyard. This card is cool. Sadly, you cannot activate it while your extra deck locked, but still, this card is insanely cool because it specifically outs a Rise Heart. and it is non-targeting. And it's a graveyard effect. And it gets you a monster. So if you want to play something really cool and want to prepare for your Arise Heart matchup, you can always go first and send this card, and then if your opponent does anything like summon an Arise Heart, all you have to do is survive, and then this card will take care of Arise Heart, which is neato. There are, of course, more graveyard effects, like literally every Fallen of Albaz fusion ever. Also, Alba Lenatus can, for example, add one fusion normal spell, which is also like fusion deployment, by the way. Good. This rounds up all of the playable cards you can run in the Dogmatika engine. So now let's get to the Dogmatika base engine, how you want to play it, the ratios. The stuff that is your base of operations whenever you're building this deck. So, for your extra deck, you 100% require to have these 8 slots in your extra deck. You need 3 Entis, 2 Herald, 1 Omega, 1 Garura, and 1 Titaniclad. Otherwise, this deck is literally unplayable. Also, for your ratios up here, you need 9 starters, which are 3 Ecclesia, 3 Matrix, and 3 Servant. Ecclesia is, these two are only full 1-card starters if you go second or you manage to get an opponent's monster on their field. Like if they play Bestials or you do some meme stuff, which I'll get to. You play 1 of each ritual. If you want to play more, you can always put in one of. You don't need more. And then you play at least 1 of each ritual spell. A ratio you can do is this if you feel like your grind game is bad, and you play 1 punishment because the card is just so good. Fleur de Lis is also mandatory in this deck, at least at 1. You can assume to play 2. Then also for your extra targets, you should also play 1 Bucephalos, by the way. So actually we have 9 cards we have to play in the extra deck. And every other slot is flex. And that means because this engine is so small, you can splash it with other engines that work very well with each other. And that is also what I'm currently doing with my list. So let's go to a more turbofied version of the base list. What we did is we added here at least 2 Diviners, 1 Illusion of Chaos, and 1 Magician's Souls. Why are we doing this? Because there is a specific line that I can show you where Magician's Souls is technically an extra +1. So if you want to go +1, Magician's Souls can be quite greedy. All you need for this line is to get Ritual Summon under Dogmatika Matrix. I'll disable sounds. Matrix will get you the other part of it. You activate the ritual spell, summon the relic. Relic sends you an Arclight. Arclight will get you, in this case, Macabre. Always first get Macabre. Then you send off of Matrix. In this case, you usually would get White Knight. And then you would summon White Knight by banishing both of these Arclights. But instead of getting White Knights, you can actually do this line where you get Illusion of Chaos. You activate Illusion of Chaos, you get yourself a Magician's Souls and put it on top of your deck. And then you activate Magician's Souls, sending the White Knight to your graveyard. Then you can technically get a draw 1. Your deck is shuffled, by the way. And then you can activate Macabre to banish again and get your special summon, and then your search and your send. So that would be the idea of the Souls engine. It just gives you a little bit more of immediate power and extra pluses, and it extends you a little bit more. So if you want to go for that approach, you can always play the Souls engine. It is almost never wrong. Also, it's good side out targets. And Diviner just makes Souls slightly better, and Diviner gets also better by Souls. Because if you get Souls in your deck, you can technically go for Synchro 7s. And a pretty decent Synchro 7 right now is Clearwing Synchro Dragon, simply because there are a lot of level 5 or higher monsters on that are activating effects on the field. And Clearwing will like take it out. And it also even has this targeting protection effect uh, that works very specifically against Fenrir. So that is something that a Clearwing Synchro Dragon does quite well. Yeah, this is the more turbofied version of the engine. So now let's get to the actual full-fledged out stuff. This is with the branded engine. You see exactly 20 slots, and some stuff in the extra deck changed. The extra deck became more tighter because we had to add an additional Titaniclad, as well as one Mirror Jade and at least one Albion. It would almost be better to play two, but playing one is enough. And also, this Cartesia is optional, but having the option to play her or a level or a 2,500 attack monster that is a light. Both of these will be kind of mandatory simply due to the nature of the format, and people if you summon Albion, being like banish the Albion, bounce the Albion, and in that case you still get the fusion off, and you don't get cucked by Garura, which is pretty much important. Another alternative option would be playing Gamma and Driver, because Driver is a good send off of this. It's 2/5. Usually you don't banish it, but in the worst case scenario, you can banish it. Or there's another option, and therefore we go to the next list. Branded Bystial Dogmatika, because another send you can do is Bystial Lobelion. And the Bystials have a couple of very cool interactions. The main pro of the Bystial cards is they interact very favorably in one of your worst matchups, which is Labyrinth. They gain you a lot of card advantage due to branded regain interactions. I can actually showcase that in the current list I'm playing. So let's set this here, and I'll show what I mean. This is a 3-card combo, but yeah, I'll showcase what it does. So we already got the regained, but if we have Matrix and any way to get a ritual summon, you can do this, activate Matrix, you get your relic, activate special, send Arclight, send another Arclight off of Matrix, you get your 2 searches. No, we are not searching for him, we are putting him into the graveyard with souls, and we're getting ourselves Macabre. Then you activate Regained, then you special summon the White Knight. Regained will activate and shuffle back the Arclight to draw you a card, and also you get your send. Which what you could do is send an Albion or whatever, but usually it's just correct to send a Titaniclad. And then you get yourself a draw, and then souls can get you another 2 draws. Which usually ends up due to you having so much side deck, so much non-engine space. This will get you pretty good advantage. You see, like even the full-fledged branded Bystial list has like 15 non-engine slots, or if you play Lubellion at 3, which is better if you have more money. Even then, you still have 12 non-engine slots, and you're playing Bystials technically, which are good against some of the matchups in the meta. And Brand of Fusion is generally just a card that your opponent has to interact with, otherwise it is pretty much game-winning due to Mirror Jade being such a broken card. But yeah, this is one of the versions. You do not need to play the branded fusion stuff. You can also play it like this if you prefer to play more of the Bystials and have a more flexible extra deck. This would be like, and then again, you could go for stuff like Diviner and the Souls package. To guarantee like the maximum efficiency when it comes towards getting towards your Bystials and getting your non-engine rolling and getting a lot of draws, because you can abuse Garura too. And if you get your ritual summons, instead you get to send Garura, which is again a +1. So that is also something you could technically do. This is also kind of the engine that Bellbind is using, who is currently, I think, the highest rated Dogmatika player on DB. So shoutouts to him. So now let's get to the more meme territory with spellbooks. Spellbooks in general are just like synergistic because they're spellcasters, and in addition, you also are playing a searchable Forbidden Lands with Spellbook of Wisdom, and you just gain your extra draw power. You could technically even like consider playing a Bestial engine. But the bad part about the spellbooks is that the spellbooks take away engine space, which could be good towards because you need also a lot of good draws. That draws get really good. That draws are like paying off more. If you want to play a draw power deck, you need like 12 hand traps at least. It's generally a good playstyle. The next meme is Iblee. You can replace Iblee with Orcus Girsu, but the idea about the Iblee deck is if you play this, let's play here, and you open stuff like Iblee, you can. So here we do this with this hand here. You can go make yourself a Lingaribo, which protects you from Evenly. You give them the Iblee, and then you can special summon stuff like Ecclesia, which then means that you have 9 2-card starters due to them controlling 2 monsters. And the funniest part about this is you could technically boost their Iblee by 500 so that the Iblee always runs over the Lingaribo. But in this case, if you do that, you have to special summon Almirage instead. So yeah, in this context, you would get your full combo off of just one Ecclesia if you open Iblee, and your opponent still has to out their Iblee. And you would have the ability, because you activated Macabre, to look into their extra deck and loop one. And whenever they get rid of the Iblee, you can loop another one off of Relic, which is a pretty neat idea. And you can make it so that the Iblee cannot run over your stuff because Almirage is 0, and you can technically boost your white relic to 2000, but you still special summon her in death because that keeps her alive a little bit more. Well, that is the idea of the Iblee stuff. You can play Small World, or you can play Signet Mining. The thing is, like, I would strongly recommend playing Small World because Signet Mining can only search Iblee, and Iblee is the deadest card in the entire deck if you do not have any access to the Dogmatika cards. Therefore, I would suggest playing Small World because Small World can bridge Iblee over Diviner to Ecclesia, which is, again, relevant. But yeah. So if you do decide to play this, you can probably cite this or play Small World. So let's get to the next meme. This is Necros Dogmatika. Why is this a meme? What is the idea behind this? The Necros cards generally float pretty well in between each other's engines. So here, for example, if we do this hand, I know this hand is skewed because it has no non-engine in the deck, but this just generally gets the idea around of how you want to sequence stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, in this case we do not add this. We add Kaleidoscope, and then we add this, and then we go here, add ourselves the Unicorn, special summon the Unicorn off of this. We get ourselves a search here. And then we get ourselves I would probably get myself a Calamity directly. Then we activate Matrix. We get ourselves the Macabre. We activate Calamity. Special. Send. And then that means we could get technically Cycle. And then we get to target this, make it 3800. We can activate this to get an extra draw. And then you can go ahead and do the Banish and special summon your White Knight and get yourself a Titaniclad Engrave off of the Macabre. So in general, this stuff, it works because it facilitates your engine a little bit more due to like the fact that like Kaleidoing Unicorn into Kaleidoing a Relic just is generally very well flowing. You just need like one card extra to do it, which is either the Relic or the Ritual Spell, or the Unicorn or the Ritual Spell. And also, of course, preparation of rights is pretty decent in this kind of deck. And also, Necros of Unicorn is generally a skill drain, which then means you can save your fleur de lis for non-extra deck monsters, which is pretty damn solid. The main weakness of this deck is stuff like Fenrir, because like Fenrir pretty much like beats the boards, especially if you don't get your Diviner access, which is pretty common. So if we did not have Diviner, this would have looked a little bit more rough against a Kashtira board. And yeah, and the other thing that is also really nice is that Brionac is a level 6, which means if you Kaleido Brionac, you get to send yourself a Garura, which gives you a draw, which facilitates more card advantage. This does not solve any problems in terms of the matchup with Labyrinth, which is a problem matchup, but it does make Trap Tricks even easier to play against due to Unicorn just soloing the entire board. And just dropping a unicorn onto an extra deck board is very satisfying. And just generally the synergy between Nadir and those just it works. But the payoff, the thing you have to accept is that you do not have many extra slots. You have 12, which is not ideal, but you can deal with it. Now let's get to the spice, okay? So, invoked. Yes, you can play Alistair the Invoker in a Dogmatika deck. Woo, who would have known? Crazy, I know. Um, the basic idea of it is Alistair the Invoker is a separate grind engine. And just getting him out is just generally pretty damn nice. And also he will eat like every hand trap in the game. But there's also a second thing that is really nice about this, and this is more of a grind game thing. Oh yeah, we of course have to banish this, activate this, and banish this. And then you can return it to top deck and add yourself back the Alistair. So basically you always have a monster negate with this, and that will usually mean that you are quite secure off of certain hand traps that could hit your actually impactful plays. But the really cool stuff happens when you get to the grind game, where you, for example, have a fusion monster in your graveyard, because then you get to summon Algides. In like turn 3, you get to summon Algides, and if you do Algides to banish, Algides becomes huge, so he's like 4,500 here. And if you then go ahead into an established board, do this, get Matrix, and then you get your 2 ritual summons, you can still do like you can get like massive damage. Like this is basically OTK through a monster, which is pretty actually OTK through 2 monsters because Algides pops on its summon. So this is another thing you could technically do. I think it's testable, specifically because just Alistair is just such a decent normal summon. It just works. It just works. But if you want to see the true cooking, this is the deck that you have to be high on. You can play all of this with Evil Eyes. The images are right now not loading in. Evil Eyes are basically Alistair, but the engine is slightly more cracked. And also there is a very stupid OTK you can do. So let's get to the OTK. So solo mode. First of all, Evil Eyes Unleashed is a really stupid card because you get it's a foolish 2 for no reason whatsoever. So in this hand of usually you would foolish the Spatial Trice, but oops, wrong top deck. So we get this, then we banish this, send Selene, and this card goes to graveyard. We get ourselves the field spell, we activate the field spell, get ourselves the Certiel. We activate the Certiel. In this case, we would get ourselves another field spell. Then you could special summon the Bystial Trice. In this case, it usually would happen from the graveyard, but in this case, we got sort of unlucky. And then you go into Link. So then we make Gorgonaio. We activate Unleashed to activate Selene, which will equip Gorgonaio with this. I mean Gorgon. Gorgonaio comes in a second. Then you can do... The next thing you have to know is if you activate Evil Eyes Unleashed, every time you use a non-Evil Eye effect or card, you lose 200 life points after the card successfully resolves or gets its effect negated. So if you do Ecclesia here, you lose a couple of life points, but not 99. So 500, another 500 for the search effect. And then let's say instead of having this fleur, we have, for example, another one of the parts for the ritual summon. Then you go Matrix, which hurts us 500. Then you, by the way, the Certio could have also searched this card. This card is going to be coming up in a second. So then you get to search yourself the other part. Then you activate this, you take another 500. You special summon this. By the way, before you do that, you take another 500 and she gets 500 boost off of Selene before the ritual summon, of course. And then you get to send Arclight and Chainlink 1 Relic, Chainlink 2 Arclight. And Arclight will get you some of the follow-up spell. And then the Relic will boost itself and you take another 500 damage. And then the Relic will boost itself. And we've lost 3,000 life points. The cool part about this now is usually you would have one Evil Eye monster in the graveyard. So Gorgon boosts herself by 100 attack for each Evil Eye card in the grave with different names in the graveyard. So it's 2,000 on the base. And then Evil Eye of Selene came ahead, and it's gain because you activated an Evil Eye spell, which is Gorgonaio. You lost 500 life points, and Selene gained another 500 base forever. And also, I mean, not Selene, Gorgon. And Gorgon, so Gorgon is now at 2-5. And now the actual kicker comes, Evil Eye of Gorgonaio. While your life points are lower than your opponent's, the equipped monster gains attack equal to the difference. So we lost 3,000 life points at the point Relic got her at the point where Relic activated her effect, which means Gorgon is 2,500 plus 3,000, which is 5,500. Plus 500 off of Relic is Relic is at 6,000 attack. And Gorgon is also at 6,000 attack, by the way. Just so basically this is just game. And if you want even more attack, you can activate another effect here, which is another minus 1,000. So Gorgon is now at 7,000. So basically, we judgmented ourselves to get a bajillion damage, and also Gorgon is an imperm, which is pretty decent. And it's untargetable and cannot be destroyed. So yeah, the only thing you have to know about this is you have to first attack with Gorgon, and then you attack with Relic, because Gorgon loses her attack boost if the life points of your opponent go down. That is the main spice of the deck, of the idea. And also, there are a couple of flex spots in the Iblee engine where you can search. For example, you could search spell or trap negate. You could search something that is a double compulse. Evil Eye Defeat is a double compulse. So these are flex spots. These are search spots you can do. And in general, you have a lot of starters because Certial is a starter, Unleashed is a starter, and Pareidolia is a starter. And this is mainly because Unleashed is a dumb card. And this engine also works under extra deck lock. So you can technically go first Nadir Servant because Cerzio is also a good monster due to him popping special summon monsters if he's equipped with an Evil Eye of Selene, as a quick effect, by the way. So that is pretty damn solid. And the last cool interaction with this is that Evil Eye Domain Pareidolia, if it gets destroyed by a card effect, you can target one Evil Eye monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. The cool thing is, if we really, really want to, we can destroy it with our own card effects, because Entis can also target your own cards. So if you really want your Evil Eye engine, you can get that. So if you want to try some spice, you can go ahead and buy yourself an Evil Eye engine and try it. I think this engine is at least solid, especially because you make a big untargetable bungus that your your average labyrinth player cannot really deal with. An untargetable cannot be destroyed bungus. Anyways, this is mainly the video. I will probably do some gameplay ideas and stuff later down the line, but you will need to give me a couple weeks with that. Anyways, see you guys.